It's 8:30. Good morning from KWBE, and welcome to our Thursday. That can only mean Ask the Mayor, the program that comes to you Thursday mornings, giving you a chance to learn a little bit about what's happening with the city of Beatrice and have any of your questions answered. We welcome in Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan to our studios. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Dave, good morning. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Not a bad morning for us. This is kind of nice.
This is nice. We might get a little more rain. You know,
Yeah.
I've kind of driven around the country going to a couple different meetings and be honest with you, golf commitments. And I see everything is so green. And
Yes.
I told Kelly this morning when I got up and I was walking the dog, and you know, she loves flowers, and we've been pretty conscientious about watering, but then the good Lord's watered a lot. And I looked at the yard and I'm thinking, gosh, it's September 18th. How in the world can everything be so green? The yards look like spring.
They do, don't they?
They really do.
You would think it was like April or May or something. As green as they are, everything's just looking really good.
It really does. Got mine cut yesterday, and it got about the same I usually get off, and I'm going, wow, you know, they're still doing great.
Yep. I took my dogs for a walk last night, went into one of our city parks, actually, and normally, this time of the year, some of those parks look a little brown, because of the whole weather situation, but no, not this time. It just looks good.
It does. It does.
So we'll take the rain. Yeah, we may get some more today, possibly, and we'll see what happens, but yeah, everything's been looking really, really well for us, so... All right. Well, let's jump into some topics for today. You had your city council meeting this past week, and that was the one where you did approve the city budget.
We did. We approved the budget. We approved in the city budget, it's broken into, administration, or basically into general fund. And then if you look at, like the electric company, and you look at the water, and you look at sanitation, you look at streets, those are set all on the Board of Public Works side. So we approved everything. So I guess just for some clarifications, I'll just kind of say that, when you look at the Board of Public Works side, we look at all those as what we call revenue generating. And so if you look at streets, if you look at electricity, if you look at water, and you look at sanitation, sanitation, and you look at wastewater, none of those take anybody's property tax. So property taxes don't get those. We don't use property tax for those revenue-generating funds. We take a look at rates, and we'll talk about electric rate here in a few minutes because that did go up. But that's how those are all set up, so they don't operate on general fund tax dollars. Because I had a person call in to the office, to the city office, and talk to the folks there. One of their concerns is that property tax is going up just a little, and they wondered if that was because of the school project at Paddock Lanes, where we're renamed it Corral Crossing and going to put in housing. And they're wondering, well, if the taxes are going up, why are we doing that project? Because I really don't want my tax dollars to go there. And the answer is no tax dollars are going to Corral Crossing or Heritage Heights as we open those new housing developments. Those will stand alone in some bonds that will be paid off by revenues in the BPW side. So that's confusing. I get it. So what really, I guess, in essence, why we raise taxes a little bit, I think on a $330,000 home, I think it's going to go up about $10 a month or $120. That is for police, fire, administration, and parks. Those are the four funds that sit and are paid for from the general fund. I think that budget for the general fund is at $3,800,000. And you think about it, the two biggest contributors there probably are police and fire. And we certainly want a strong police force. They are professionals, and they do a great job. Dispatch falls under that. We're very blessed to have some dedicated long-term dispatchers. And I don't want to just glaze over that because, we've got the longevity in the police department and longevity in the dispatch department. They work together, but it's amazing how well they work. When people call in and somebody says, I'm not sure where I'm at, I think I'm 19th and whatever, and they look around their surroundings, Most of these folks have been around long enough that they can not only go by, digital,
Right.
but also by location.
Right.
Back to the days where you said, well, you drive 3 miles south at the edge of the corner, you're going to see, a power station, and you want to turn right. Now, it's not quite that
Right.
simple.
Look for that windmill.
But at least they just have this intuition about them of how to get to there as quickly as possible. And so between police and dispatch, and then they also dispatch for fire, and then the professionalism of the fire department, we're really, really blessed. I've always said, I don't want to be the one that has my house on fire and then the trucks roll up and something doesn't work. We want to make sure it's flawless and that it works. And so most of the increase will go in police and fire. Some people say, well, do we need all the parks that we have? And then I have other people say, well, I wish we had more parks. And so that's kind of one of those things too. But again, if you look at the parks department and the number of parks we have 4 employees and then some part-time help. And so they really run a very lean ship and do a great job. We'll talk about Fifth Street, later. But when you look at all the things that they've done over the summer to keep the parks going, keep the swimming pool going, parks also includes maintenance on all the buildings we own. So you have people working on those. They do a great job too. And so I think that the most prudent thing we could do is to raise the taxes today, this little amount, so that I call it, I don't ever want to get into deferred maintenance. I don't want to see the city managed by crisis. If you have a crisis, are you going to have the funds? On the other side of the coin, we don't want too many funds, but we do need to make sure that we fund police, fire, parks administration at the amount that they need. Because if you don't do it, someday it's going to catch up with you. Mm-hmm. Perfect example. If anybody's ever had an accident and their vehicle gets totaled out, they find out real quickly insurance doesn't quite pay for everything. Now, if you multiply that for a police car, so a police car gets totaled out, we are probably not going to get exactly what we paid for it because it's no longer new. Now we have to take all the equipment out of that, the radios and all the cages and everything else. You've got to take all that equipment out, and you got to put it into the new police car that you created. And then you also have to mark it and put the lights and everything on it. So if you do have, and they use those as they need to, and sometimes they do get into altercations, you could have $65,000 wrapped up in a heartbeat just getting them to be back on the road. But if you call the police department at 3 o'clock or the dispatch at 3 o'clock in the morning because you think somebody might be breaking into your house, you want them there. And so those are really the areas that tax increase is going for.
Have you heard much since the meeting and the vote? Have you had a lot of feedback? Or
I haven't had a lot of feedback, but we had some, as you can imagine. People want explanations, and I don't blame them, and that's the explanation I can tell you. I think one of the hard parts for the administration, Hannah in the finance area, and Tobias, myself, and the city council, we do our due diligence. We put together really a good budget, and the department heads really start working on this 8 months early to get ask what they need. Mm-hmm. And there are several filters because the question's always asked, is it a want or a need? If it's a want, it falls to the bottom. Need, you kind of try to take care of. Sure. So that's kind of the process they go through. We advertise, we put on Facebook, it's on our website when our meetings are. We went through the budget extensively the first meeting in September. We had one person there from the public. We had one person again. We went over it and passed the budget. So there are opportunities to express, and there are 8 council members that, 2 from each ward, so there's a way to contact them as well. But I think what I would say is a lot of the people understand that we're really doing a pretty good job and we're being very fiscal responsible. And that's the place that we want to be.
You talk about, the parks. How many acres of parks do we have?
I don't know. That's a great question that I wish I had the answer to.
That's a lot that's a lot of grass to mow, isn't it?
It is. Now, technology's changed. I mean, some of these mowers now are 96 inches wide, kind of like, how planters have always grown from 4, 8, 12, 24, 36. So that really helps us, yes. But, we have a lot of part-time help. We keep busy.
We, and the thing is, I mean, you look like at Riverside and Chautauqua, campers over the summer, keeping things busy there. Hannibal, game probably just about every night, bringing in people from a distance. So, I mean, our parks are very heavily used, aren't they?
They are. And trails.
Trails.
We have a really great trail system.
Right.
And one of the things that people have asked for, and it's not in the budget just because of the expense, and so we don't put that on there, but is they'd like to have sections of that trail lighted so they can walk at night, as you start getting, or even mornings, like this morning, it wasn't light out at 6:30 like it normally was, which would be great. It's just trying to figure out how do you, because that would, again, fall into the area of parks. So if you're going to do that, the only place you're really going to get the money is to increase taxes for something like that. And so, would it be nice? Yes. Is it something we would like to figure out a grant for? Absolutely. But right now, it isn't probably a top priority for funding.
Okay. Are we done with trails, or is there some plans for some additional trails?
There is plans for traditional, or for some more trails.
Okay.
And grant-funded trails. That's always nice. And I think it's going from is it Riverside out to the Homestead.
Okay.
So it's kind of a joint trail with Homestead National Park. And so I don't know. It's kind of funny. There's a grant for it, and the grant's a long-term grant. Every time you get a grant for a trail, sometimes it's 6 or 7 years before it happens. But I do know that they're working on the design, which is great. I mean, think about bicycling out to Homestead, and you're not going on the highway.
Yeah.
So
feel a little safer that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And before we take a break, you did mention the two housing developments. They are really coming along.
They are.
Wow.
They are. Absolutely.
I kind of drove by them the other day thinking there used to be a school there, but look, it's a completely different look now. They've really done a lot of dirt work. They
have, and so many things have changed when you think about, when a city grows, you get like a spot like Heritage Heights or Corral Crossing. You have the opportunity to bring in the new design and technology, so to speak, into a neighborhood. So this one's going to be a little bit unique. You'll have some entry points, but you also have two cul-de-sacs, so it's going to feel a little bit more like almost like a nice little community in each one of those.
Is everything on schedule right now on those?
Pretty much.
Pretty much.
I mean, our wonderful green grass was created by the rain that the good Lord gave us.
Yeah.
And so that has slowed things down a little bit, but they're pretty much on target.
And any interest in those?
We've had a number of people and builders who are certainly wondering when we're going to get far enough to know how to price things. We want to get the infrastructure in, so when we price the lots, we know that we get that money back.
Okay. 8:43, we'll come back, and you mentioned 5th Street. We'll talk a little bit about that, and we also have a question in regards to the Court Street Bridge. We'll get to that coming up. We're back on Ask the Mayor on KWBE. Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan with us here this morning. Got a call earlier in the week from the folks with the Troubles Popcorn Stand. Said, Dave, could you please announce that we are open for business? Everything's cleared. And I said, we can do that because, it looks like everything's good on 5th Street there.
Absolutely. I had to run a couple errands, so as I was going down, I made sure I drove by 5th Street today because I knew the landscaping was in. Again, our parks folks did a great job of planting the flowers and the trees that go along there. It looks really nice.
It does, doesn't it?
We were able to keep some of the, there's some characteristics you'll see from the 5th Street when it was redone, but now it's nice. The landscaping is there, and you don't feel like you're hemmed in as you're driving down that road anymore. Yeah. So I think it turned out to be a really good project.
I know, yeah, there's been work both 4th and 5th, haven't there? Yeah.
Fourth is looking good too. Just adds a little bit of greenery to downtown.
So what's the next project downtown? Is there anything on the drawing board at the moment that's coming up? Or
We're still waiting for our major raise grant to be getting through, I guess, the bureaucracy that it has to get through to get to us. But they've said they fast-tracked that, and I'm not sure what fast-track means, but we're hoping that in the next month or so that'll get done. We're also trying to take a look at 2nd and 3rd Street. I know we're trying to design and bring a little bit more of the greenery into that 2nd and 3rd on Ella there. We wanted to start at 4th and 5th. We're starting at 2nd and 3rd because our city engineer made a great observation and kind of coached us a little bit on what to do there. Water rolls downhill. So if you start at 4th and 5th, you may have trouble getting 2nd and 3rd. So you always want to work from 2nd and 3rd up to 4th and 5th, which makes sense.
Makes sense.
So I really appreciate that input because I didn't think of that, but I knew water rolled downhill. So I appreciate that.
All right, but that I will say I drove down 5th yesterday. It was it does look good there. So
Yes, it does.
Looks nice.
Did a very nice job.
They did.
That was a local contractor with Tiemann. Got right on it, got it done, and looks really good.
So I think the popcorn stand is open on Thursday. So go down and get some popcorn.
Absolutely.
Today. So you can park right there now. So
Yes.
We did get a question in. We were talking about the trails and just got a question in regards to safety crossings on the highways for where our trails are at. Is it possible maybe to have like safety lights for 2 spots, like on Highway 77 and then one on 136? Is that something that's doable or not?
Well, that's a very good question, and it's one of those that we can at least submit to the state for them to put in. Hardest part about both of those roads, 77 and even though it's West Court and 136 West Court, those type of things are controlled by the state, just like the stoplights that roll through on 136 and on 77. Those are controlled by the state. So we don't have a lot of control there, but it certainly is a great suggestion. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I think we put in our budget were those type of flashing crossing lights down by the school where the trail crosses where we finished on Lincoln Street. So certainly understand the concern there. It's just one of those things that we'll have to see if we can work on with the state on.
So you can do input, but again, that decision
Correct.
is a city thing.
Or a state thing.
I mean, a state. Excuse me, a state
that's all right.
thing.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah. That's where it would really come down to.
Yeah. Okay. And I think some folks kind of get mixed up sometimes when it comes to stoplights and all that. When it's on a highway, a state highway, it is a state decision, isn't it?
It is a state decision. And the state is really nice enough to let us maintain the surface and pay for that.
So kind of them, huh?
But as far as stoplight timing, that's out of our hands.
Okay, all right. We thank the listener for that question, and we'll again encourage folks to be careful when they are traveling
absolutely.
in those areas.
That's right.
That's the thing for traffic, just to be careful knowing
Absolutely.
that those trails are there. So
especially, the trails are very convenient for kids, and we have an elementary school where they use the trails to get to the elementary, and on the east end of town on 136, you really just need to be careful for them.
Very much so. Speaking of questions, we did get a question earlier this morning. Had a listener call in, and this might be too far down the road yet. I don't know. Maybe you got some sort of an idea here you can share with us. When it comes time to do the West Court Street Bridge, working on that, what is the plan, I guess, for the general traffic? They're wondering, as far as a detour, if you're going to close the whole bridge, how do we get to the, apparently, like they have some family members on one side that they go back and forth. Well, I work, I go back and forth.
Right.
So what's going to happen, Mayor, when that does come along?
Well, that's a question that is a great question.
Okay.
And I think even from the city, we'd like to kind of finalize that because, we do have to get our emergency vehicles to the west side of town. And if the whole bridge is gone, it's going to be really tough to have a good response time. unfortunately, again, that's a state project, and I'm sure they've done this before. I don't know if they'll do half and half. We all know that when it floods, we've all been through trying to get around.
Yeah.
And there's no good a way around. And so I wish I had an answer for that. And I think they're slated to do that in 28 maybe, which is kind of it's not a firm date. But that is one of the things that hopefully we'll have some input on and how we can get people from one side to the other. So right now that's my best answer. I wish I had an answer. But we certainly have that kept in mind for a lot of reasons.
That is one thing. Yeah. That is that's the main way to get over here is that bridge.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah. So, okay. All right. We're at 8:52 and we'll take another break and come back and we'll wrap things up with the mayor coming up here on Ask the Mayor on KWBE. We are in our final few minutes of our Ask the Mayor program here on KWBE. Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan with us this morning as we get ready to close things out for the day. I noticed I see there was a post on Facebook that they're working away on the Astro Park. I know
Yes.
We kind of mentioned on our last program how some of the parks are getting some new playground and everything.
They are. We had a grant to put in new playgrounds, and they're getting installed as we speak. And I think they're just cool. I mean, there's so many new things that we never had, as we said last week, growing up. But Astro Park is I think, started, and that's wonderful because that's been a great project with Saratoga and the city, and kind of rounds out by the splash pad, kind of rounds out that whole park. And it's just neighborhood parks are important. Some people say, well, you have too many parks, but when you think about the neighborhood parks, not only for socialization, but for exercise. And having grandchildren myself, I know how important it is to sometimes urge them to get off their electronic devices and get outside and have a good time.
Enjoy these nice days when the weather is just perfect, too.
That's right.
Just get out and enjoy them.
That's right.
How do you, as far as keeping up to date on playground equipment, I mean, we talked last time, it is an expense.
Right.
Playground equipment is not cheap, so you just don't go out and buy it every day.
Right.
But how do you go through a process of determining when do you bring in some new playground equipment for our parks?
Well, again, we have Mark Pethod, who's the head of parks and maintenance. He just keeps an eye on, a couple of things. How old are they? And then how good of structure are they? And are they still safe? And so he evaluates those and helps us really guide us on when we need to start replacing some items or all the items. And then, the one park that might have some older equipment, he also then has to study what do we need to do to bring it up to today's standards, because there are ADA standards and there are safety standards and a number of other things that weren't there in the 50s that certainly are here today. And so we rely on him to really advise us as a department head of how do we continue to bring our playground areas up to speed when we can and afford it.
Because we definitely want to keep those young ones safe.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And exercise.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that as a grandparent, the two high-energy kids that I have from Fort Riley, when they come down, one of the highlights is to go to some of the playgrounds, and it's a highlight for them. And when they get home and they're tired, it's a highlight for me.
That's good. So everybody's happy.
Everybody's happy for a little while.
Oh, okay. We are down to our final minute. Any final thoughts this morning, Mayor? Anything else that we didn't touch on that you might want to just recap or just might want to mention here before we close it out for today?
I probably say it sometimes, but maybe not enough. Now that, what I've got a year, almost a little over a year left. When you sit in this chair, you don't realize how important every employee for the city is. And I will tell you that barring, that 5% rule, we have so much dedicated folks, whether it's an electric person giving up their Labor Day for part of the day because the line went down, whether it's the guy that's fixing the sewer line that broke, or when you have a water main break, it's December and it's 12 below zero. You've got the police department that think about the times. I said grandkids, and I'm going to go to a grandkid event. They may not be able to because they're on duty. Yep. When you think about all of those things, and then you think about the administration from our city administrator on down, our financial director, how many months that she spent putting together a budget that's prudent. And one of the things I should say is they just do an awesome job. And I am so thankful to be, at least associated with all of the city employees that work really, really hard.
It takes a village to make it all work, doesn't it?
It's working, yeah. I mean, they work hard. They work hard.
They work hard. Mayor, thank you so much for coming in. We will check back with you again on another program down the line and visit again about city issues.
I think it's Eric's turn.
I think so, too.
Next Thursday. So
I think we get you in 2 weeks then.
We'll start looking at the first part of October.
Sounds like a plan. Thanks, your Mayor.
You bet. Thank you.
This is KWBE Beatrice.